yeah. My mind's telling me no. Vindication.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous. Woke up feeling dangerous. Woke up feeling dangerous.
Since I've once again misplaced this drop, I'll say it myself. Mic check 2 1 2, bitch. Alright, what's up, guys? This is DDP back from a short hiatus. Had a very stressful weekend. If you guys saw, I posted just to give you guys the heads up for why I was not able to go live on Sunday. It also threw me off yesterday as well because I was still dealing with it early in the morning. Got a little bit of sleep yesterday, but it still kept me for a little bit of a loop, and it's not really until now that I'm feeling a little bit more settled in. Red is okay. That's good. His medication appears to be helping, and after like 3 trips to the emergency vet, he seems to be situated. So he's resting. Take him about a week to kind of adapt to the new medication, and then after that, he should be largely back to himself. So, I didn't update the text behind me. Damn, let me update that. I actually don't know if any is still in Dubai. What's up, guys? First in the house is Gle. Can't catch him. What's good? Gle asks, is it October yet? Not just yet, but soon. Very soon. Time moves fast. The grains of sand fall through the hourglass ever so quickly, and we all lose grasp on this thing called life. Can't catch him. Who makes the first basket of the season for the Mavs? I say KP. Yeah, I say KP from Luka is going to be the first bucket of the Mavs season. I think Luka gets the assists, Micker45. Let's see. Eric Anthony, what's up? Let's see. What should I make the text behind me say? Red is good. Good doggo. That is all. I don't know. There it is. All right. So I'm going to treat this as a bit of an open forum tonight here. If you guys want to ask me Mavericks or Cowboys related questions, I am here for that. Yes, I said Cowboys as well. Cowboys season is about to kick off, and there's already a ton to talk about. To be frank, just because of the time of year it is, I have more kind of talking points prepared on that front than I do on the Mavericks front. But that's why, in part, I'm keeping it an open forum so we can just go back and forth. If you guys got questions for Mavs, I'm more than happy to answer. Brett, I'll be the first to comment on one of these things one of these days. Yeah, just got to ring that notification bell. That's the way to do it. Bob Ross, is Dak worth 40 mil? No, Dak Prescott is not worth 40 mil, and literally only maybe 3 quarterbacks could argue such a thing at this stage. That would be like your Aaron Rodgers, your Drew Brees, and your Tom Brady. Brady's been given discounts for years. Brees has started to give a little bit of a discount late in his career as well. But they're also guys who are bona fide Hall of Famers. So Dak is not worthy of $40 million. But to be honest, I don't think Dak actually asked for $40 million. There's already been a lot of talk refuting that claim that we know he turned down the $30 million offer sheet. It sounds like what he's aiming for is more in the $35 million range, which is still the highest paid, which is still a little for me. But anytime you have a number in mind you want in negotiating, you're not going to go to the table with that number, right? Like, think of it like this. If I wanted $40 million, or if I wanted $35 million, I'm not going to go to the Cowboys and say, hey, I want $35 million, because then they're going to negotiate me down based on what they want. The Cowboys could say, hey, we'd rather pay you 28 or 30. Well, then they're going to counter my 35 offer and say, well, what about 31 or 32? And, that's just how it works. So I think Dak's team, if anybody threw the number 40 out there, Dak's team threw it out there knowing the Cowboys would obviously counter. But I think it's the Cowboys who actually put out the point that he wanted 40, because we know this has been a very public negotiating process back and forth. The media has been utilized to basically get both sides, I should say, their perspectives out there. Dak has largely stayed out of it, but his agency at CAA has not. And so as a result of that, you kind of have this like veiled sniping at each other. The Cowboys look at it this way. Why would the Cowboys leak this for Dak, saying he wanted $40 million? I think it's not that complicated, because one, it shows that like, hey, we did put a good faith offer out there. We made offers to him, to Amari, and to Zeke that would put them in the top 5 highest paid at their positions in the league. Well, that sounds great, but when you think about the NFL in particular, you have to consider things like guaranteed money and the security in terms of the years. So we don't know, what's the guaranteed money look like? They might have offered Dak $30 million, but only offered him like $60 million guaranteed. Carson Wentz got $107 guaranteed. So you can't give it that way. You just can't. Like, factually, cannot do that. But the Cowboys aren't going to say that. They're just going to say flat out, oh yeah, he turned down $30 million a year. Crazy, right? And then why do you throw the 40 out there? Well, people, if they thought Dak was asking for too much when he said 30 wasn't enough, you throw out 40 and they think he's downright crazy. But now, when the Cowboys likely get him at that Carson Wentz number that I think they're going to get him at, that roughly $32.5 million a season average, once they get that, then the Cowboys look like they have successfully won negotiations, and Dak looks like he has stepped way back from what he wanted. Like, Dak might look at it and be like, hey, this is the most I can get at $40 million. This is what I deserve. But look, I was willing to put the team first ahead of myself because I am a leader of men. And so I did what was best for the team rather than myself. So Dak looks a little good and the Cowboys look a little good. And at the same time, they got all this great little publicity, which we know Jerry Jones loves. The Cowboys always want to be in the headlines. That's why the Zeke holdout has been a big deal. That's why the Dak contract stuff has ratcheted up in the past couple weeks. And the only guy who's really getting kind of screwed in the situation is Amari Cooper, because he has completely quietly gone about his business and nobody's really questioned so much about his money he's going to get. But now he's dealing with a heel issue. We've gone from hearing that's a heel bruise to hearing that it's actually something related to the ligament, to hearing that it's a irritation of his plantar fascia. And that could be problematic, but he's the only guy that's been just completely quiet, and I think he's getting hurt in this case because I don't think he's going to get a look for an extension before the season starts. I think Dak and Zeke get done because they've put the most pressure on the Cowboys and they've been more vocal, and I think Amari has to play out the year, and that means that there is a very realistic chance they could lose him after one more season in Dallas, which for a first-round pick would not be ideal. I don't want to pay Amari Cooper $20 million a year, but I also don't want to lose him at this stage. It makes no sense for me to do that. Sorry, I got on a little bit of a rant, not route. Mrs. Scouting Pro, what's up? Long time no see. Let's see here. Jump back in the chat. Can't catch him says... Oh, Brent Bender, I do have the bell selected, but Glad apparently has the premium bell icon. I don't know about that, but that's good to hear that you got the bell, Brent. Let's see, I know he didn't ask for $40 million. Bro, this might be the first year I'm actually going to watch the NFL. Hey, that's cool, Glad. Absolutely. Trust me, I got a lot to say on the Cowboys front as well. I know that my Maverick stuff is really what the channel has built around in the past year, but I've actually got a lot of Cowboys stuff in the works as well, not just collaborations that I'm looking to do and roundtables and things like that I'm looking to set up, but also other things as well. I'm looking at taking on a couple more writing gigs, both of which would actually be paid writing gigs, which would be a substantial step forward kind of with my growing sports journalism career that I'm trying to cultivate now. In the past, a lot of the stuff I've done has just been more about the experience or about the credentials, like the access I could get to like the Maverick games and all that. And that's great. That's awesome. Being in the locker room and all that is awesome. But at some point, when you want to take that next step, you have to be able to move into that rank in a more professional setting. And I feel like I am on the cusp of that at this point. And so I'm very optimistic. I'm not gonna put too much out there to give you guys. I'm not going to tell you who it is yet until I know for sure that it's going to happen. But just know that I have been, even this weekend, even as draining and exhausting as this weekend was, I was very busy handling some business-related stuff to ultimately help grow this site, this channel. I say site because I don't know how many of you actually go to the DallasProspect.com. If you do, hey, salute in the chat. Shout out. Let me know if you actually go to the website. But that's where a lot of my written content ends up as well. So I'm just curious on that front. I've debated for a while if it makes sense to keep running the website, which I built, or if it's just worth sticking to like YouTube and all that, even though YouTube feels so temperamental and doesn't allow me the same writing platform. Can't catch him. I'd give him $27.5 million, but I know how I feel about Dak. Gotcha. Let him prove it this year and next. Here's my thing on that, Kent. If he does prove it, if Dak does prove it, if Zeke proves it, if Amari Cooper proves it, the price tag only goes up. If you're nervous about paying Dak, if you don't like the idea of paying Dak $35 million right now or $40 million or whatever, and by the way, $40 million, I don't want that either. I'm just saying, whatever number you're uncomfortable paying right now, understand that if he has a year even like the second half of last year, that number goes up, and suddenly the starting point, the floor, is suddenly probably $38 to $40 million. That's just the reality. If a guy is healthy and if he doesn't just completely tank, the price tag always goes up. Especially for quarterbacks. If they had been able to, and I understand it was probably Dak's team that had no interest in dealing at the time, but if they had signed Dak after the season ended, they could have gotten him for $25 million a year. That was the rough market set for him at the time. Just since then, we're now talking $15 million more per year in the discussion, where now people are saying, is Dak Prescott worth $40 million? No, nobody is worth $40 million. But I will tell you this, in the last 3 years, Dak's 3 years of his career, nobody has scored more touchdowns through their first 3 years in the NFL than Dak Prescott, other than I misworded that. 6 or at most 7 players in NFL history have scored more touchdowns through their first 3 years. 6 or 7 people. Dak has interceptions thrown on just 1.7% of his career passes. Through the last 3 years, nobody other than Tom Brady has more wins than Dak Prescott. I mean, there's a lot there that you look at. The reason people don't like Dak is they feel like he doesn't pass the eyeball test, even though in every analytical department he more than passes it, and the results on the field more often than not pass it. So it's like, okay, what is the argument we're having at this point? Would you rather have a Matthew Stafford where he can put up eye-popping numbers but never wins a damn thing? Because I'm pretty sure Minnesota already has him and his name is Kirk Cousins. It means nothing. I'd rather have Dak Prescott for my money, but that's just me. Dak is making 2.8 this year. Franchise him next year, be 27 mil, still less than 30 million this year, for sure. Let's see, Mrs. Scouting Pro, excuse me. Dak, not sure if you covered yet, but Jerry had another dinner Saturday night at Nobu for the media. Notice who broke the story first, and notice who has been in the national media, Jane Slater. Exactly, and that's what I've been saying. The Cowboys are the ones who are putting these stories out there because it keeps them in the news, which they love. Jerry loves that, and two, it's setting this. It's kind of like hardball public negotiation. Because they knew everyone would react super negatively hearing Dak wanted $40 million. So by you putting that out there right up front, you're putting that out there knowing that, hey, that gives us leverage because now you have all this public opinion swaying against you, pushing on that front. Things get ugly. In negotiations like this, you're going to see both sides show their teeth. Ultimately, they're going to have to reconcile and they're going to have to settle on a number. And I think that they will. But it is something to say, hey, it's great that like a Tom Brady and a Drew Brees and guys like that take less money. It's great that Dirk did that for the Mavericks for the last several years of his career. But you know what? They took every dollar they could all throughout the early portions of their career. Dirk got paid. Dirk is in the top, maybe not now because the NBA salary cap has blown up to such an absurd degree the last 4 or 5 years, but prior to the last few years of Dirk's career, he was in the top 5 or 6 all-time in NBA money made for his career. He got paid. It's just one of those things. You don't ever see a guy coming off his rookie deal, let alone a 4th-round draft pick coming off his rookie deal, not take everything they can get because they don't know. They could be one hit away. You never know. Could have a Michael Irvin situation where suddenly you have a spinal injury out of nowhere and your career's done. Never take another snap. You get the money you can, and I don't blame a guy for that. Although I understand the difficulties it puts on the team, and the Cowboys have a lot of tough decisions to make because they have drafted really well in recent years, and they got to figure out, okay, who can we keep and who are we going to have to let go? That's just the tough reality of it. Who do you think is going to get traded in the deadline before of the NBA season? Who do you think is going to get traded before the deadline in the NBA season? Asks DKD. That is a very wide open question because there are always a ton of guys that get traded in those situations. I wouldn't be surprised if Andrew Wiggins ends up moving on somewhere else. I think Minnesota's in a tough spot. What's another guy? The Mavericks will make some kind of move if that's the angle you're looking for. I think the Mavericks are going to search for that third player, not necessarily a star, but a guy that fits them very well. Their own, to an extent, Caron Butler. I know we didn't get to see a whole lot of Dirk and Caron together. That was only about a year total because Caron came in at the trade deadline 1 year, and then by January of the following season is when he had that knee injury, and he never played again with Dirk. So we didn't see a whole lot of it, but that kind of idea, a guy that's a solid at a quality 3-and-D kind of guy who can be that second, in the case of Caron, second scorer, but for us would be a third scorer next to Luka and KP. And I think that can make a substantial difference because you don't have to get a superstar at this stage. Would it be great? Sure. But look at the NBA at this point. It's all the duos. And so more than likely you're going to look at an addition like that. I will write up an article before the Mavericks season about the specific targets that I have in mind, like the kind of way too early trade candidates like the Mavericks should take a look at. I'll have that ready before the season, but until then I don't want to go too far into that. But good, it's a good question for sure. False leak was an internal leak. False story was an internal leak. Yes, it was. Brett Bender, what do you think happens first, a Cowboys touchdown or a Money Maher missed field goal? Ooh, a Cowboys touchdown or a Maher missed field goal. You know, the Cowboys, before the Amari Cooper trade last year, the Cowboys were, I think, the 30th rated offense, like scoring offense in the league. And they were just abysmal. They were 3-5 through the first 8 games. They make the Cooper trade. Yeah, they lose that first game to Tennessee. But then after that, they don't lose another regular season game, beat the Seahawks. The point I'm making is, in a roundabout way, after the Amari Cooper trade, the Cowboys in the first half of the season were the 30th rated third down offense. After the Amari Cooper trade, they were the number 1 rated third down offense. Like the second half of the season. I'm not saying for the whole season, like it was that much of a transformation. But in the second half of the season, those final 8 weeks, they were the number 1 third down conversion offense. And they were much more respectable. Overall, I think they ended up 22nd in the league in terms of offensive scoring. But again, the first 8 weeks really dragged them down. Cooper completely revitalized the offense. After him and Dak got going a couple games together in, Dak's number suddenly went from throwing for under 200. I think the final 8 games, Dak only had 1 game under 200 yards, and that was the Tampa Bay game. So that just changed completely everything for the offense. And I think if healthy, if you got your new modern day triplets, which I know we keep indoctrinating every quarterback, running back, wide receiver combination as triplets, if you have your latest edition of the triplets, 3.0 or whatever we call them, healthy, I think this offense is still very good. Obviously, you have Jason Witten coming back. That'll help it a little bit just in terms of the safety blanket. Randall Cobb, I think, will offer quite a bit to the offense. And, hey, I keep telling you, look out for Michael Gallup. If you got Amari Cooper on the field opposite him and he's claiming double teams, Michael Gallup will eat as your number 2 receiver this year. I fully believe that. But if Amari Cooper's heel injury, his irritated plantar fascia injury continues, and it starts getting into the regular season and costing him some games, then you might have a problem, because as much as I love Michael Gallup, he is not ready to be a number one receiver facing double teams. He's just not. TGK TV, what's up? All good here, man. Kid OSU, what do you think DeLon's stats will look like? What do I think his stat line will look like? I think it's not going to be anything too eye-popping. I think you'll probably see something in the neighborhood of 11.5 points, maybe. Probably something in the neighborhood of 6.5 assists. I mean, he's not going to be... I realize 6.5 assists is more than Luka had last year. Luka had 6. And Luka's going to be the main focal point of the offense the entire season, which suggests that it'll be higher than that. But DeLon Wright is a pretty good passer. I think a lot of his stuff, he rebounds well for a point guard. I think his numbers are going to be pretty... They're not going to be eye-popping, but they're going to be relatively filling of the stat sheet. I think you're going to probably be looking at something like 11.5 points, probably 6 to 6.5 at best assists, and something like 5 or 6 rebounds. Nothing major, but again, for him, the big thing is being able to be a versatile defender and being able to make plays when asked to do so. He'll be also sporting the number 55, which gives our lineup a 77 and a 55. Very unique look for a starting lineup. And KP is just 6. He's not like 66, but I like the interesting number combinations we got. It's very fresh. Let's see here. Rance Hamilton, what's up? What are your thoughts on signing a vet like Melo or Dwight Howard? I'm not a fan of the Melo train. I'm not one of those people who say he just can't play at all in the league anymore. I do think, I think he's willing to come off the bench. I think he's been humbled enough at this point he would be willing to do that. I think the problem with him is his last 2 years in the NBA, he just did not shoot at a very solid clip, and he was such a defensive liability, and a lot of times he just didn't have enough effort. I mean, OKC, when they had, well, all 3 of them are gone now, but when they had Russell Westbrook and Paul George on the floor together in the year they also had Melo, when it was the 2 of them on the floor together, OKC was a monster. But as soon as you added Melo to the equation, they were losing in the points per 100 possessions. Like, it was just a weird transformation where it's like the second you took Carmelo Anthony out of the lineup, they were much more dynamic, which is why they traded Melo in the offseason as part of keeping Paul George, because it was like their move to improve the team and shore it up. And then they were great again as a duo this year. Prior to Paul George's double shoulder injury, he had a torn labrum and a torn rotator cuff on each arm, not both on each arm, but one on each arm, and just completely killed him after the All-Star break. And after that, OKC just crumbled. They were the 3 seed prior to all those injuries, and then the late season collapse where they won something like 4 of 17 at one point. Like, it was that bad of a collapse, and they still wound up as the 6th seed. And Paul George was Westbrook's the heart and the face of the franchise. Well, he was. He's gone now. He's in Houston. But prior to that, Paul George had become the lead dog in OKC. Westbrook had deferred to him, and when suddenly your lead dog had 2 bum shoulders, you just had no chance. OKC didn't have the shooters to hang around at that point. As for Dwight Howard, there's a reason he's had like 4 teams in 5 years, or 5 and 6, whatever it is. I don't doubt that he's been humbled as well, but I'm not interested in it. He's a black hole offensively. You throw the ball down in the post for him, and he just goes one-on-one. Like, he's not the Dwight Howard of old. There's a reason why his hometown Atlanta Hawks team, his teammates celebrated in the locker room when he got traded at the deadline. That's the degree to which that whole thing went. Charlotte didn't miss him. I think he went to the Nets before he went to the Wizards. Am I remembering that correctly? I think maybe the Nets waived him, and then he went to the Wizards. Missed all of last year with a glute injury or something. I just don't. I'm not interested in Dwight Howard. I feel like Melo especially would be an upgrade over some of the guys we're putting out this season. Nah, I'm cool on that. I'm cool on what we got. I'd rather run the young pups out there. Cowboys X Factor, what's good? No matter what he does ever, he should never ever get paid $40 million less than Tom Brady. Dak's not worth 30. He's going to get at least 32, man. I'm telling you, minimum. Minimum, he's going to match the Carson Wentz deal. And I think that's a good comp. I'm hearing right now that he wants the Russell Wilson contract. And hey, check this out. I did a little bit of research earlier. Let me pull up my notes. I did a little bit of research because I was curious when I read that he wanted Russell Wilson money. Obviously, everyone looks at it and they're like, well, Russell Wilson won a Super Bowl, and he went to another Super Bowl, and if not for the infamous throwing on, what was it, 3rd and 1 from the goal line, if they don't throw that pick, they're a 2-time champion. If they just hand it to Marshawn Lynch and run it in. Here's the stats for Dak versus Russell Wilson straight up through their first 3 years. Dak record 32-16. Russell Wilson 36-12. Passing yards, Dak Prescott 11,820 total yards. Russell Wilson 11,827 total yards. Touchdowns, Dak 85, Russell Wilson 83. Interceptions, 25 for Dak, 26 for Russell. Completion percentage, 66% for Dak, 63% for Russell. Sacks, 113 for Dak, 119 for Russell. They're more comparable than you think. I mean, we know Russell Wilson has turned into a stone-cold assassin, but in terms of just the black and white numbers on the page at this stage in their career, Russell Wilson, don't forget, Russell Wilson landed on a team. Now, he's undoubtedly become the driving force of that team, the face of that franchise, and everything like that. He's a stone-cold killer. But he came into a team that was basically ready to launch a dynasty, and it ended up not happening that way. Like I said, they come up 1 yard short for a second straight Super Bowl, I believe it would have been. But man, before they had to start paying all of the Legion of Boom, they were dangerous, and they were set to be a dynasty. They looked a lot like the 90s Cowboys. He's not even a top 15 quarterback. I agree with you. He hovers around that 13 to 15 range, and I agree he should not be the highest paid quarterback. I also realize that the guys who get paid the most money this year, or not this year, but in the NFL today, if you are a good quarterback, you are going to get stupid money. You are every year going to rake in money. Look at Kirk Cousins. Yeah, it's a 2-year deal, but he got $85 million contract fully guaranteed. That's a stupid contract. It's Kirk Cousins. What has he won? He won the NFC East in a down year once, where 9 wins won the division. Woohoo! You like that? I don't. Minnesota probably doesn't like it that much either right now. Like, I would take Dak over Kirk Cousins every day of the week. So if Kirk Cousins can get paid, if Matthew Stafford, like I said, you want a guy who can put up big numbers but never really translates it to wins, Matthew Stafford's your guy. If you're talking about like, hey, Dak doesn't pass the eyeball test, I don't care what the numbers say, well, then what you're really saying is you want the guy who looks the part but doesn't play the part. That's what I'm hearing at that point. Stafford is your guy then. It is what it is, man. Let me ask you this, Dallas prospect, who in the league would give him over $30 million in this league? Nobody. I fully disagree with you, man. Again, you're gonna have people who are going to pay primo dollar. Dak Prescott is 32-16 as a starting quarterback in the NFL. He is a 2-time Pro Bowler. He has never had a losing season, and I already read off his stats compared to guys like Russell Wilson. His numbers play out in a way where somebody would throw a Hail Mary out there just to sign him, and someone would be willing to give him 30. Would they give him 40? Hell no. But I bet you anything, if he was on the open market, someone would look at him at 30 or 32. You start pushing more than that, I don't think so, because that's where I do say, yeah, at some point, the eyeball test that lists you in the middle of the pack roughly. I look at it this way. You got, what, 30 NFL teams? Or is it 32? I always flip that in the NBA. One of them's, I think NBA is 30 and NFL is 32. Dak is right around the outer edge of that top half of the league in terms of starting quarterbacks. He hovers somewhere, I'd say, between 11 and 15. Really, I'd say more like 11 and 13. I think probably 13. And with that being the case, yeah, I agree. Big money is going to be hard to pay him. But you know what? In 2 years, you're going to look at that and you're going to say, damn, dude, this isn't that bad paying him anymore. Why? Because 2 years ago, everyone lost their damn minds when the Raiders gave Derek Carr $25 million. You know what they're saying now? Nothing. Because now $25 million sounds like a fairly reasonable contract. And again, if Dallas had been able to negotiate or willing to negotiate with Dak at the end of last season, they could have had him at $25 a year. Then instead, Wilson got paid. Wentz got paid. I think Roethlisberger maybe got another contract. I mean, it's a short extension, but still, guys are getting paid. And every time, the longer you wait, the more that price tag goes up. And that's part of why Cooper's in no rush to do anything, because he saw Michael Thomas get paid. Now he's wanting to see what Julio gets. It's just the business, man. Dak had better early years than Romo. Romo didn't even see the field as a starter for his first 3 years. He came out in 03 with Witten, but he didn't actually take the field for the first time until 06. And that was middle of the season once Bledsoe got benched. Come on, Dirk deserved every penny of that. We're talking about the Dirk contract thing. By no means was I suggesting Dirk giving discounts was because he didn't deserve the money. And if you're talking about when I said he was top 5 or top 6 in career earnings at one point, again, yes, he deserved it. The point still stands. When did he give the discount? When did he cut the hometown discount checks, so to speak, for the Mavericks? After he had already won and won and won. And in fact, he took the year they won the title, he took a new deal that was a little bit less than the max he could get, and that was supposed to be to help them keep the team together. They ended up winning the title, and they still lost Tyson, and Dirk kind of lamented after the fact of, I guess I should have taken more of a discount. No, Cuban was never going to bring Tyson back. He was never going to bring the title team back at that point. He wanted to swing for the big fish because he was afraid of the big three he saw growing in OKC, and he admittedly feared how they were going to compete with that. So he wanted his own big three. He wanted Darren, Dirk, and Dwight. That's what he wanted. It just didn't come to fruition. Got close. That's a story for another time, but it got damn close. Did he get Gilbert Arenas paid? What is Gilbert Arenas paid? I know Arenas was great for a very brief window in time. Let's see here. Dirk played 21 seasons, so of course he was up there in money made. Yes, but I understand what you're saying, but at the time of that statement being true, we were still talking like year 14, year 15. Still stands true. My point is the same. He'd already been paid over a long career. DDP, hard decisions for Cowboys are who they need to keep versus a want. I think Jalen Smith is a must keep, and in fact, I think Jalen Smith might move to the front of the line in terms of these contract negotiations, because I think Dallas is looking at this, and I don't see Zeke getting solved here soon. I don't see Dak getting solved here soon. Somebody's not coming to the negotiation tables serious right now. Both sides have to be serious and committed to get deals done. And right now, somebody's not serious. The Cowboys can tell you all day, hey, we've put offers on the table for all 3 guys that would pay them at the top 5 at their respective positions. That sounds great, but you didn't tell me details, bro. It's the NFL. We don't have fully guaranteed contracts. What's the guaranteed money? Again, Wentz got $107 million guaranteed. $32 million a year. You might be offering Dak that same price point, and that might sound nice to Dak because they are fairly comparable. I think you could argue Wentz is the better quarterback, obviously, but because of his physical inability to stay healthy, I think you could say him and Dak are pretty much on level playing field. Wentz got $107 million guaranteed. Dak's looking at that and saying, I should get at least that much guaranteed. So if Dallas went to Dak and said, hey, and I'm plucking a number out of the air because, again, they've told nobody. If Dallas went to Dak and said, hey, here's $30 million a year and $80 million guaranteed, Dak might be looking at that like, whoa. Why am I making less than Wentz, who I've matched or bested in every category to date, and yet I'm also taking way less in terms of the guaranteed money? We don't know what the structure looks like. We believe that it was a 4-year, $120 million deal, which would be $30 million a year. If that's the case, okay, then maybe there's a discussion there. Maybe it is the guaranteed money or that. But if it's not a 4-year contract, maybe the years is the problem. If it's not a 4-year, maybe the years is the problem. It's either the guaranteed money or it's the years. Telling us top 5 in their position, leaves some wiggle room for like giving an honest but not totally honest answer. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, I'm not lying. I'm not being transparent. It's not the same thing in some cases. And, you know, as far as Zeke's concerned, Zeke wants Todd Gurley money minimum. And I don't know if Dallas has said they don't want to be market setters or reset the market. That's why Dak's not getting $40 million. I don't even think Dak or his team said $40 million. That's the part they refute. They don't refute the turning down $30 million. They refute the wanting $40 million thing. I think Dak wants the Russell Wilson. Still would make him the highest paid quarterback, which would still be for the next year or two very, very not thrilled about that. But at the same time, I know in 3 years, that money's not going to look so bad because quarterback market keeps shifting upward. I also can tell you, this is the hypothetical. If Dak got $40 million, he would be making over 14% of the salary cap for the Cowboys. If you give Dak $40 million, you're going to lose a guy like Jalen Smith or one of these other young pups coming up that you're really wanting to pay. That's where you have to be able to put. You don't want to tell a guy, hey, you need to put the team before yourself. This is your first and potentially only chance you'll get to get one of these contracts, especially if you're Zeke, but you need to put the team first. You know, guys like Dak and Zeke are looking at that and saying, whoa. You just gave D-Law everything he wanted. You just gave Zach Martin everything he wanted. You gave Travis Frederick everything he wanted. You gave Tyron Smith everything he asked for at the time. Like, you're paying all these other guys primo dollar, and you're not really, you know, gritting your teeth about it. But then when it comes to us, suddenly it's, hey, I know you're the face of the Cowboys as the quarterback. The quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys is the most polarizing position on the most valuable sports franchise in the world. And your numbers are great, and we think highly of you. We're going to need you to take a team discount, though, on your first contract. Nah, it doesn't really work that way. I don't blame Dak for trying to get his money. I don't blame Zeke for trying to get his money. I can tell you I disagree with what they're wanting, but I don't dispute that they have a right to ask for it. How's Red doing? Red is doing much better. Roberto, thanks for asking. Yeah, he had some weird event, some weird neurological event thing. He's about 4 years old, but he's never had any health issues. And for whatever reason, apparently his breed, he's like a Labrador mix, can just develop in their first 5 years like seizures. So he started just having seizures and stumbling around, falling around, was very confused and disoriented, very distressed. And so we were in and out of the emergency vet all weekend. The first 2 days that he was dealing with all that, I maybe slept 3 hours. I mean, just no sleep at all. And that's why, even though his last episode was yesterday morning, and I considered going live that night, but after I got home from work, I was completely dead. I was still running on fumes. And so I was like, let me give it one more day, assuming I can get an actual proper night of sleep, which I did. And then I'll attack this thing with just an open forum like this the following evening. And that's what I'm doing now. Red's doing good, though. Again, thank you for asking. And I'm trying to get back to business. Let's see here. John Frank, what's up? Fans are too hard on Dak. He's not Romo. Two different players. Dak has potential and plenty of room to grow. I agree. DDP, I think your audience forgot how the team paid Romo $108 million in May of 2013. In return, they received 23 games played and 2 to 3 years of cap hell. No, you're absolutely right, Mrs. Scouting Pro. 100%. The Cowboys giving Romo at the end of his career $108 million. It's not even just, it's a lot of Cowboy fans in general who seem to forget that, because when people hear like the kind of contract Dak's looking for and they hear $40 million a year, so he's wanting like $150 million roughly for the contract. Oh my God, like who does he think he is? Romo made that over the course of his career. Romo got a $108 million contract he signed. Now, as you said, he gave about part of 2 seasons to that. But yeah, put the team in cap hell because of the guaranteed money. Romo took plenty. Romo wasn't giving team discounts at the end. It didn't matter that it was 2013 and Tony Romo had been in the league 10 years. Like, he'd already gotten his money. It's just people forget that. And people don't like to acknowledge the fact that Romo, for all of his accolades and passing records and all of that, he won 2 playoff games. He beat the Eagles and he beat the Lions. Dak's already accomplished half of that in 3 years. It's just something to remember. And it also took Romo until, 2009 to get his first playoff win? So it took him 3 seasons. Took Dak 3 seasons. Fair enough. Amari got to prove himself. No big money for him just yet. Amari Cooper has been to the Pro Bowl 3 of his 4 years in the NFL. When he came to the Cowboys last season, I think on the season he had something like 267 yards receiving, and then still reached 1,000 by the end of the year because of how white hot him and Dak were together. He still made the Pro Bowl. Again, he transformed the 30th ranked scoring offense in the second half of the season. He turned them into the number 1 third down conversion offense, and he made them much better. I forget the number off the top of my head. I wish I could throw this out to you because it would make my point even better. I'm trying to think of what the scoring offense rating was for the Cowboys in the final 8 weeks of the season. All I know is where they ended on the season as a whole. I forget where they were in that, but I know on third downs, they went from like the second to worst in the league prior to the trade to the final 8 games of the regular season being the number 1 rated offense on third down. Why? Because every Amari Cooper reception on third down, all but 1, I believe, converted for a first down. The dude is a phenomenal route runner. He's not Julio Jones. He's not Michael Thomas, and I'm not saying he should get that money. He shouldn't. $20 million is way too much a year for Amari Cooper. What I would be willing to give him would be something in the neighborhood of 17, even 18. I think he's worth that. Again, he's 25 years old, and he's been to the Pro Bowl 3 of his first 4 years. The guy is quality. He completely transformed this offense. And the argument I would make perhaps against Dak Prescott in negotiations would be, look, we can get into the specifics and the whats and whys of certain things, but at the same time we have to consider what the offense looked like in 2017 in the 6 games without Zeke. Now, people do like to overlook the fact that Tyron Smith was also out for pretty much all 6 of those games, but it was a 3-3 team with the Cowboys, and the offense was rather anemic. 2018, we saw what it was through the first 8 weeks, and that was with Zeke, but Dez Bryant was gone. They didn't have a dominant X receiver anymore, number 1 receiver, and it wasn't until they introduced that you saw that, and that's why I think if you had to make an argument for which guy is more valuable to Dak, Zeke, or Amari Cooper, I would probably say Amari Cooper is more valuable to Dak. But you want to keep Zeke, obviously, if you can, because even if you tried to draft a replacement in a future draft, even if you spent a first 3-round pick on him, you might get 80% of the production. Yeah, you'd be spending a fourth of the price, but you're not getting Zeke. You're not getting that guy who is a top 2 maybe running back in the league, arguably 1, arguably the best running back in the league. So it's not ideal. That's why this year and maybe next year, those are the 2 years you have to go balls out for it if you're the Cowboys, because I have a feeling things are going to get very sketchy and a lot of this foundation we've built is going to shake apart. Melo was not like VC accepting the role of a veteran to help younger guys out. Nah, on Melo. I agree. Mavs finally added a solid starting center, won a championship, then dumped him. Added another, dumped him. You think Powell Kleba is enough at the 5 to keep KP at the 4, asks John Fink. Do I think Powell and Kleba are enough at the 5 to keep Porzingis at his preferred power forward position? They're going to have Powell at the starting center, So you're going to get half of that equation. I think that's what they're probably going to want to do. Now, depending on the lineup, there are going to be times I think they run KP at the 5. But I do also think that you're probably looking at more of a situation where Powell is your 5, because Carlisle's system loves a rim rolling center, and Powell is great at that. So while it's a little bit weird to have your 7'3" guy at small forward, at power forward, and your then 6'11" guy at center, it looks a little backwards perhaps, but still, I think they're good enough for it. Is it your perfect solution? Maybe not, but it's, I think, good enough that that's what they're going to do for the most part. I've been around the team too long. What does the Mavs go after Marcin? Oh, should the Mavs go after Marcin Gortat? Man, they went after Gortat years ago. Before Orlando made, I think it was before Orlando made its run in 2009 to the NBA Finals. The Mavericks actually signed Gortat as a restricted free agent, and at the very end, the Magic ended up matching to keep Dwight Howard's backup center, Gortat. So the Mavericks tried this in the past, but it has been a long time, buddy. It's been 11 years since since they went after Gortat, I think. 10 or 11 years. So I don't imagine they would look at him, because they've got the cap room is the thing, man. They didn't use, I mean, even if we don't talk about like the Courtney Lee situation, they didn't use like $14 million in cap space. So the option's there if he's a free agent. I honestly have not thought much about Gortat in a few years, but I wouldn't hate it, but I also don't know how his pairing would work on the floor, because he's not a rim rolling center, which again is a great piece next to KP and essential for a Carlisle system. So probably no. Let's see here. What up, Law? Just now saw you in the chat. What's good? Because I just now saw your thing, I have no idea what you said was all true that I said. I assume I was making a good point. I don't know. No one in the comments has killed me, so I assume I've made some pretty good points here tonight. Let's see here. Just arrived. Do you think Boban would be able to play 25 plus minutes if we focused on zone defense? If we focused on a zone defense, I don't see Boban playing 25 minutes a night anyway. Anywhere he's been in his career, he's never played that many minutes a night. In fact, he's not even an every night kind of player. But he's very savvy. He's very effective when he's on the floor, but his foot speed is horrifically bad. I know what you're saying. If we play a zone, would we be able to play him 25 minutes a night? I could see if we were in a weird situation where like health was a problem and we had to get creative with lineups where Carlisle could employ something like that. But do I think we would do it every night automatically? No, because what kills a zone offense? 3-point shooting. What has the entire NBA gotten damn good at in the last few years? What has become the main form of scoring opportunities in the NBA? If it's not right at the basket, it's a 3-point shot. The mid-range game is nearly dead in modern NBA, and I actually think that's a detriment to the sport, but it is what it is. Everyone wants to be the Warriors and the Splash Bros. Hell, Atlanta's going out of their way to try and build that exactly, because I think they got someone from the Warriors. Was it the Warriors' former assistant GM or something like that? He came from Golden State, and now he's trying to build literally the Eastern Conference Warriors mold. So it is what it is, but zone would get killed in that scenario unless you were going up against a team that's just really bad. Like OKC last year was like 30th in terms of 3-point shooting as a team. That's the kind of team you could get away with that on. Cowboys messed up when they said start at Gurley's contract. You are absolutely right, Zachary Delgado. Absolutely right. When Stephen Jones, I believe it was at the Senior Bowl, or was it the Scouting Combine? I can't remember where it was. But early in the offseason, Stephen Jones said that we know with Zeke, the number starts at Todd Gurley's contract. Well, then what happened? Well, Zeke said, hey, my production is basically as good, if not better, and I don't have any knee injuries in my experience. I don't have arthritis or anything in my knee, so why would I not make more than Gurley? And the Cowboys are like, ugh. Oh, hey, look over here. Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell's numbers are actually better than Todd Gurley's. And look, on the true open free market, he got $35 million in guaranteed money, not $45 like Gurley. That's what we want to give you. And Zeke's like, dude, I'm like 5 years younger than that dude. What are you talking about? I agree, Zach. The Cowboys made a mistake. Stephen Jones made a mistake when, unprompted, he said the figure starts for Zeke at Todd Gurley's contract. And now he's trying to walk it back and say, well, really it should be this one over here because this is what a guy got on the open market. And that's another comparable guy there. So, yeah. No. I don't know what Zeke's going to get, but the problem is the Rams were kind of insane when they gave Gurley that contract, not just because he had 2 years left on his deal like Zeke has now, but also because the rest of the league looked at them like, dude, why are you paying that much on a running back? You're screwing it up for everyone else. No running backs are making that money anymore. And then the Jets kind of shot themselves in the foot too because they were really the only ones in on the Le'Veon Bell chase, and yet they threw extra money at him, more than they had to. So in both cases, the Cowboys are probably looking at it like, guys, what are you doing? We were looking at like $12 million a year to keep Zeke. And I don't know what the guaranteed money would have looked like, but they're like, we're looking at like 11, 12 million a year. And now we're over here and you're freaking making us talk about 14, 15 a year with 45 or 50 million guaranteed. That's not what we want. And you can try and front load or back load a contract, but depending on the situation, the player might or might not like that. The fans who are anti-Dak want the contract to be front loaded so that the Cowboys can have an out after 3 years. Bro, if Dak Prescott is getting at least $107 million guaranteed money like Carson Wentz and you're front loading that in 3 years, you're going to be paying some serious dough. But you got to work around it. You got to get creative in some cases. And I think the Cowboys, in the case of Zeke, I think they put themselves at a negotiational disadvantage right out of the chute. So what is the Cowboys' record this season? I'll tell you this. I've seen fierce debate, as usual, talking about Dak Prescott. If Dak Prescott does not play, if you have Cooper Rush and or Mike White having to start for you, this is a 4 or 5 win team. If they have Zeke and Cooper, but not Dak, but they still have Cooper Rush and Mike White, this is a 6 or at absolute best 7 win team. At best. If you got Dak with the rest of these components, this is a 12, 13 win team. This team is as deep and talented as really any other in the league. The Eagles have a case to make. The Rams have a case to make. Maybe the Saints. That's pretty much it. And I would argue with our youth that we're better than the Saints and we're better than the Rams. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that we're better than the Eagles too. That's where I'm at. If we take care of business, if we re-sign our guys and we roll everyone out there that we expect, and we have a largely healthy year, knock on wood, as we enjoyed last year, then I think this team has a chance to finally do it. It's as good of a complete roster as the Cowboys have had since 2007 when they sent 13 players to the Pro Bowl. That's how good this team is. TGK TV, I really appreciate your Mavs insight, man. Oh man, no trouble at all. Happy to talk with you guys. You guys are a blast to talk with for sure. Highlight of my day. Anytime I jump on here, I talk with you guys. Just talk sports, and even a bad day can easily be forgotten. I give another prediction once the 53-man is determined. Yep. Wentz played 8 less games, and that's the only reason they are comparable. Yeah, but when you look at even things like completion percentage, they're still comparable. And if you want to then open it up to the run game, Dak has 16 career rushing touchdowns to Wentz's 2, 3, and on one of them he tore his ACL. Dak, he's not the same kind of player. Wentz, I said earlier, is the better quarterback, but he can't stay healthy, and one of your best abilities is availability. So when that being the case, think about it this way. When I talk about Carson Wentz can't stay healthy, you guys can't just look at me and think I'm talking about just his professional career. You know that, right? Other than the torn ACL, other than the broken back last year, what did he have as a rookie? Did he have any injuries as a rookie? A wrist? Ribs, maybe? Even dating back to his career in college, he always missed at least one game. He has never in his career played an entire season. At least, I don't know what he did in high school, but college and pros, never played a full season, I don't believe. Health is always an issue, man. And when you're talking about giving the keys to the kingdom to a guy, you got to know he's going to be there. Dak has never missed a game. Again, knock on wood. Never missed a game, knock on wood. And that's one of his best assets. That and what I've already talked about, the fact that he has more total touchdowns at 85 through his first 3 years than all but 7 players in NFL history. The fact that he's thrown interceptions on just 1.7% of his passes. The fact that he has more wins the last 3 years than anybody not named Tom Brady. The fact that he's won the division 2 of his 3 years. The fact that he's never had a losing season. The fact that he's been named to the Pro Bowl twice. There are a lot of things you can look at and see the value. He's not your prototypical quarterback. But is he a guy you can win with? Hell yes. Wouldn't put my stock in a defense that was 26th in takeaways. Yes, takeaways was the big Achilles heel of the defense last year, and it's what I said keeps them from being an elite team. If they can take the ball away this year, if they can actually become a team that will take the ball away from the opposing offense, then they have a chance to be, to me, if you're an elite defense and not just a damn good defense, we're talking like top 3 in the league. And to be in that category, you got to be able to create turnovers. So like last year when they couldn't create those turnovers, I viewed them as a top 5, 6 defense maybe. Stout as hell, but, well, at least until the Rams game. But if you can't take the ball away, then it's just a matter of time. Eventually you'll wear down enough and the other team will make something happen. Just got to get Cooper Rush in there. All right. Let's see here. Let's see. Abraham Young, what's up? This is crazy. Zion and the Pelicans got a lot of prime games just because of Zion, says Abraham Young. Yeah, they did. I noticed OKC has like 2 nationally televised games this year after having at least 13 a year every year since 2009. I thought that was pretty remarkable. Durant and Westbrook and then Paul George and them always drew attention. Now OKC is like the stepchild, the redheaded stepchild of the family. LeSueur lately, cut your hair, buddy. I'm not your buddy, guy. And no, I'm not cutting my hair. Boban has not played more than 60 games in a single season. Agreed. Wait, who said that we had the number 1 ranked offense in 08? That had to be somewhere in the chat because I never said number 1 ranked offense in 08. In fact, I never said number 1 ranked offense, period. I said as deep of a talented roster as we've had since 07. By the way, I meant your facial hair, says LeSueur. Oh, okay. Still no. I kind of like it. Maybe it could use a trim, but I like it other than that. Personally, my top 3 important QB components: accuracy, power, and durability. Yeah, fair points. Mavs schedule looks pretty nice this year, in my opinion. Good chance to start well. And the back-to-backs look way better than last year. Over under 48 wins, asks John Fink. The schedule does look much better, and it would be refreshing as hell not to start the season with a brutal first 20-game stretch that puts you in a hole that you ultimately can never dig out of. But as far as 48 wins over under. I'm going to go under. 48 wins got you the 8 seed last year in the Western Conference. That went to the Clippers. That's 15 games better than where the Mavericks ended last year at 33 wins. 15 games difference in 1 year is a huge difference to make up, especially in a stacked Western Conference with the kind of talent and duos that are around. Because you're still going to have to figure out how to consider. I mean, let's think about the Western Conference, right? You're going to have the Warriors are still going to be a playoff team. They got Draymond, they got Steph. They still have quality around them, even though Durant's gone and Klay Thompson's out pretty much at least until the All-Star break with the ACL. You're going to have the Rockets with Westbrook and Harden that are going to have to contend with. You still got the Blazers. You got the Jazz, who made a phenomenal offseason. Love what the Jazz did. You have the Nuggets, who are damn good. You have the Spurs. Oops, as I punch my mic. The Spurs, who are always good and always contending. You're going to have to really contend with them to try and get that 8 seed. Let's see who else you got out there. OKC falls out, obviously. Clippers. How did I not mention the Clippers already? Clippers going to be contending for one of those top 3 seeds probably. And then you have the Mavs who will be contending for something as well. It's just the West is stupid stacked. I'm sure I'm forgetting like another egregious team. Just rattling off the top of my head, I already forget who I mentioned, who I didn't. But the point is, I think the Mavericks are probably looking at something like, AC Mavericks 44 wins over under. I'm gonna say push. I think it is 44 wins is what the Mavericks are looking at this year. That's 11 games better than last year. Would 44. Here's the thing. I have to preface this entire conversation by saying what they are today. That's no mid-season trade that gives you a third scorer, and that's not accounting for any deadline moves they may or may not make. That is saying right now today, Luka, KP, Seth Curry, and largely the same roster other than that they're running back from last year. The Jazz, yes, the Jazz are another one of those teams. I guess I thought I mentioned them because I said Utah and Denver. Wait, I said Utah. Come on, Abraham. Trying to make me look bad. I do that enough on my own. But anyway, now I lost my train of thought. See, I've lost it again. Point being, with the team currently, found it. With the team constructed as is currently, I think they're 44 wins. If they can make a move at the deadline, I think they can make a late push to get right into the thick of that 8 seed race. I think they're probably, if they do make the playoffs, I think they're the 8 seed. I think my pie in the sky scenario would be 7 seed. But again, that's based on what I see today with the roster. LeBron should have gone to Denver or Utah when he had the chance. I didn't mention the Lakers. That was who I forgot. Son of a bitch. Oh, man, I'm losing it, man. It took me a while to think of the Clippers, and then I had to think of the Lakers. Man, I'm losing my touch. I agree as they are today. 44 wins is right, and they should be happy about over 500. Somebody asked me in a previous stream at what point would I consider the season a failure, and I was asked if I would consider it anything less than playoffs a failure, and I said no. To me, you have to win at least 42. Your floor is 42. If you're not a 500 team, then I think it's a failure of a season, even though that's not to say that you didn't grow and you didn't improve. I just think that with the way the landscape shifts so drastically year to year in the NBA, you really need to be able to stake your claim to the free agent market out there that, hey, we're building something here. You've got a year now to look at Luka and KP together. Hopefully one or both of them have somehow made the All-Star team that by then. KP made it previously with the Knicks, but you get my point. That's what you're looking at. You're looking at that and hoping that you can attract somebody else, even if it's not a star, even if it is like the Danny Green type character of that year, to come here, because it'll make you as a team much better to include him. If you can do that, I think if you can do at least 42 wins minimum, you have a good shot at that. If you post like another 38 year or something like that, I think you're going to be hard pressed. If we make the playoffs again, I hope we play the Lakers. That would be a tough matchup, but I'm sure Luka would be hyped to go up against his idol in LeBron. Rangers King, what's good? Yo, what it do? Working on the 20 draft. Hell yeah, man. That's cool. Are you working on a piece for the site, or are you working on something for your podcast for that? Shout out to Max Levy, the Third Rounders podcast as well. John Fink, success is a healthy Luka KP that look good to other players in the league. Yeah, but I would say that if you only win like 38 games with a healthy Luka KP, then you start to kind of question how effective the tandem is. It's a league built on tandems right now, and I think you got to show that you're at the very least a 500 team with that tandem. I know their age is still going to be a plus. It's not like you're pairing 28 and 28 and 29-year-old guys together and they can't get more than 500 in terms of their record, but I think it's still a problem if you're below 500. How long have I been going? Hour 7 minutes. All right, guys, I got time for 3 more questions. Let me see here. While I wait on those questions before I wrap this up, let me hit up some of my other potential points I had up. If you want the brain-melting Jerry Jones analogy of the day, this is a tweet from John Machota. This is Jerry Jones. I'll read his tweet and then I'll read the quote from Jerry. Jerry Jones just used an incredible analogy to explain how he's been there before, so he's not worried about contract negotiations with Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, and Amari Cooper. Jerry Jones, and I quote, "Picture you were a driver of a car and you had a wreck and your hand was almost severed off, but you didn't understand your anatomy. You look down, you're spurting blood, you open the door and run into the woods and either die bleeding or die from shock. The educated man looks down, knows his anatomy, squeezes and knows his best chance is to wait for help. That's because he's been there a lot and done that, so I'm squeezing and waiting for help." The educated man has been there a lot with his hand cut off and squeezing the bloody nub to try and get the bleeding to slow. Okay. I don't know what that is, Jerry, but whatever, man. What was his expression last year? I think it was last year when they lost to fall to like 3-5, or maybe it was even 2017. They asked him how he was feeling, and he said like about as low as a crippled cricket's ass. Jerry Jones-isms are the weirdest things, man. AC Maverick 1899, Jackson or Curry, the better defender? I like Jackson. I like Jackson a lot. I actually wrote a piece recently making the case. It's actually if you go to the community tab of my channel, you'll see I actually linked my recent article on the case for starting Justin Jackson for the Mavericks. Defensively, yes, much better than Curry. Curry's a good team defender, but you see quickly when you look at some advanced stats where his limitations are on that front. And Jackson's not as good as Dodo in terms of a defender, but I think he's got the ability to be a good defender. He's the same height, similar length and everything. I think he's got a better all-around ceiling, higher all-around ceiling than Dodo does. I still say people are sleeping on Seth. Dude's a beast. Yeah, man. Dude's like a 43% three-point shooter for his career. That's insane. His best year of his career was with the Dallas Mavericks in 2017. One of the few. Him and Yogi Ferrell were pretty much the two highlights of that year. And in that season, he averaged 12.5 points, shot, I think, 42.5% from three. And he started 42 games, actually, for the Mavericks. The most he's ever started in a season in his career. Now, I don't think he's a starter here. I think he's an off-the-bench guy. But I do think you'll see him a lot in a lot of those closing lineups in close games because his three-point shooting is so damn invaluable. Let's see. Pod right now, but might have a round 1 pick. I might try a monthly draft column and a little later on the Wings upcoming draft. That sounds good, Max. Looking forward to it. Classic JJ, for sure. Here's a quick comparison for people comparing Dak and Wentz. This is head-to-head. I don't count the week 17 of the 2016 season because Dak played one series, and then it was like, all right, rest the starters for the playoff game. Excluding that, they're 3-2 4-1 in favor of Dak in terms of matchups. 3 playoff starts for Dak, 0 for Wentz. 32-16 record for Dak, 23-17 for Wentz. 2 division titles for Dak, 1 for Wentz. Quarterback rating of 96 for Dak, 92 for Wentz. Average yards per attempt, 7.5 for Dak, 7.1 for Wentz. Rushing touchdowns, 18 for Dak, 2 for Wentz. Games missed, 0 for Dak, 8 for Wentz. So it doesn't make sense to ask Dak to take less money than Wentz. That's the gist of that. Can Seth become like Danny Green? No, he's not a 3-and-D player of the same caliber. He doesn't have the same height and length as Danny Green does. Now, as a 3-point shooter, yeah, he's got that potential for sure. Seth Curry is a phenomenal 3-point shooter, and he can actually do quite a bit off the dribble as well. I think he's a quality player all around, but his defense, like I said, he's a good team defender. But when you start looking at that, last season he actually held opponents to a lower 3-point percentage, like 5% lower 3-point percentage against him last year than they averaged against the rest of the league. So that's kind of like a random, weird little stat when you try and break it down. But the idea is that you look at how a guy did on average. So if I'm going up against a guy who shoots 45% for the season from the field, and against me, he scores, on the season against me matched up, he made 47% of his shots. Well, he's a +2 against me. So guarding the 3 last year, Seth Curry held his opponents to 5% worse, a -5% guarding him compared to their season average. But as you go inside, once you go inside the 3-point line, they start going like 11% better than usual against Curry, 19% better than usual against Curry, and you're like, oof, oof, oof. Like, he's a pretty good team defender, but he's not Danny Green defensively. I love Seth Curry, by the way. For a guy who's played so little in a Mavericks uniform, the 1 year, because he missed all of the second year with the injury, he is irrationally high on my recent memory favorite Mavericks list. I was always wary of Green based on his ability to disappear in the playoffs. I mean, he had the record for quite some time of most threes made in an NBA Final Series. And he had made a couple blunders in the Raptors championship year, this past year, but he still had his moments. I don't know. I don't think that's a fair assessment, but I think with his age and all of that, it wasn't the perfect fit, and the LA Lakers is a much better fit for him to go compete right now, but it is what it is. Will Luka and KP average over 20 points each, and can Tim Hardaway average 15 off the bench? All right, this will be my last question here. Will Luka and KP average over 20 together each? Yes, I believe so. I 100% believe so, because you're going to see that from pretty much all the top duos in the NBA. Luka averaged 21 points a game last year. I think it was like 21.3 points a game last year. I expect that to go up a little bit, perhaps to 22 or 23 points. I don't think it's going to be a leap forward, because he is going to be sharing some shots and some attempts there for KP. KP, before his injury that season, was averaging 22.7 points per game. I think 6.3 or 6.6 boards. That's the one aspect of his game that's never been great. And 2.7 blocks. So KP he actually got named to the All-Star team that year, but the injury obviously kept him out. But he still got the accolade for it, because he was nominated for it. So yeah, I think KP is probably going to be your leading scorer this year. Probably something like 23, 24 points a game, because I think he's going to get a lot more easy looks. He's never played with a player as good as Luka. Yes, I just said that. Melo, when he played with KP, was not better than Luka is right now. Not as an offensive player, not as a creator, certainly not as a creator. Melo could create his own shot, and that was it. And he could jack up shots like crazy, but it's just an ISO player, and that's just not Luka's style. So I think Luka's going to create so many easy looks for KP. It's going to be insane. KP's going to have a field day. He's not going to have to do stuff off the dribble as much. He's not going to have to create something out of nothing. I know Luka's not technically a point guard, but he will run the offense. The best freaking point guard that KP's ever played with is like Jarrett Jack. I mean, it's not even comparable. So KP is going to average like 23, 24 points a game. Luka's going to average probably 22, 23 points a game as well. They'll be about even, but I think KP is your leading scorer. And then the question as for Tim Hardaway Jr. averaging 15 off the bench. Tim Hardaway Jr. averaged 15 in the final 29 games. I think he played like 22 or 29 games with the Mavericks last year before his injury. So probably 22 games for the Mavericks last year. And he did average 15 points, but he did it on 14 shots a night, so horribly inefficient. I think he'll be better suited coming off the bench for the Mavericks, but my assumption of him averaging 15 off the bench when he's going to have to share minutes and all of that and shots with like Seth Curry, who's a much better and more reliable three-point shooter. Again, Curry's a career, I think, 43% three-point shooter, shot 45% last year. Hardaway Jr. for his career is like 34.5% roughly. So he's just at the line of adequate, not like good per se, but like kind of around adequate to good-ish. So that's one thing. Then you're also going to have to consider other guys that are coming off the bench as well, either Justin Jackson off the bench or Dodo. You're going to have to consider, I don't know where Courtney Lee fits into things, but you just have all these guys coming off the bench, Jalen Brunson, that you're going to have to figure out, okay, how do the shots go around? And I don't think there's any chance in hell Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to get as long of a leash to shoot 14 shots a night for the Mavericks just to get 15 points. I don't doubt that he would look for his shot that many times. My question is whether or not he would have the length of leash to get that many shots a night to score that inefficiently, or if Rick would rather look at it and be like, yeah, give me a little bit more Seth Curry. I think I like that better. You think Luka will win an MVP award? Now you're looping me into a couple more questions. All right. Kid OSU is the last one I'm reading. Do you think Luka will win an MVP award? In his career, I think Luka will win an MVP trophy. I don't know when, but I do think it will happen. It's not a guarantee. It's just a gut feeling. Hardaway Jr. needs efficiency improvement. Dude, he's needed that his whole career. Hadn't stopped him yet. He's always going to look for a shot. He's always going to be aggressive, sometimes detrimentally so. I think KP will play less than 30 minutes a game. I think in the first half of the season they will workload management. I don't know why I said that backwards like an idiot. They'll manage his workload the first half of the year for sure. I think they'll extend his leash a little bit as well and let him play a little more in the second half of the year. I imagine, because here's the thing, Luke only averaged 32 minutes a game last year. The second half of the season, like after the trade deadline, the last 29 games, his minutes were like 39. But on the season, he averaged total 32. I think KP, below 30, sure, he might be like 28, 29 minutes a game, but you'll see significantly more in the second half of the season. But we'll see. So that's going to wrap it up for this stream, guys. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. I will be back more with some more Cowboys talk and stuff, and Cowboys and Mavericks, of course. I will keep you guys up to date, let you know how those potential job opportunities pan out for me as far as sports writing. If they're official, if they go down and work out like I think they will, I will jump on here and give you guys the news. I'll tell you where you can read my stuff, my new stuff. And we'll go. Oh, and for the record, no, I would not be leaving Dallas Sports Fanatic or Dallas Prospect. I'm adding to my plate because I'm insane and I decide that I never need to sleep, except for when I get 3 hours of sleep over the course of like 36 hours. Then I need some sleep. But other than that, I keep working. I keep working because I'm trying to build something and you guys are helping me build it. So more news to come. Until next time, guys. As I get tongue-tied for the first time randomly at the very end. Until next time, guys, remember, every legend was once a prospect. Salute. I did it!
Romo was a miracle.
I want me some glory hole.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man, and I'm saying, woo, right here. I'm
the man. Woo!